This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Last season, despite absolutely no wins on his card, Daniel Sadro carried 7 podiums and consistent attendance to a championship crown. An average finishing position of 3.6 tells you all you need to know about the tenacity Daniel displayed in fighting for overall victory. But now we wipe the slate clean and start afresh. A new season with some new tracks will test everyone. We'll see who acclimates best as we get ready to watch round 1 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, we're back on your home turf here in Pennsylvania, but I imagine most of our viewers have never witnessed some of the road courses Pocono has to offer.
Yeah, Joe, as I've told you many times before, I've been here before in person multiple times, but I can definitely say I've never seen this configuration run in person until today on the sim. If someone were to tell you that we were going to go to a 1.5 mile NASCAR track today, Pocono Raceway certainly would not be what comes to mind. On top of that, as you can see, this is not the Tricky Triangle. This is the Pocono North Road Course, the 10-turn, 2.4-kilometer roval located down in turn 3 of the oval. Local club circuit racers know turn 1 here as Devil's Elbow, where after starting on the front stretch, which again is the north straight of the oval, you're thrown into a bit of a sketchy braking zone and the track begins to really tighten up. It's kind of similar to that unsettling feeling of going off the banking onto the flat apron at a place like Daytona. In the infield section, the track stays almost completely flat with extremely little elevation change. And while the drivers won't have to worry about that, they are going to have to worry about passing, which is going to become incredibly hard as the track is very narrow and a lot faster than what you may think from looking at it from above. You rejoin the oval at the exit of NASCAR Turn 3, where the SRFs will try to pick up some slipstream in the 6-degree banked Big Bend. It's certainly a unique track, so get ready to take some more notes as we send you down to the Long Pond, Pennsylvania straightaway for the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Pocono. Like most rovals, turn 1 is going to be pretty fast and scary. It's important to keep the car settled because you'll be braking for turn 2 immediately. Don't be tempted to turn in too early since it's a very late apex on this right-hander. That's going to be a theme around here. Get back across to the right and then spot your braking for 3. Just like the last corner, try to late apex it and be careful of coming in too aggressive or you might lose the rear. If you hit it right, you should just clip the white rumble strips on the inside of each turn. Turn 4 is a weird one because you're braking essentially after the corner starts. Then you can really get back on the power for a bit because 5 should be flat out. Thing is, you gotta hug the left side for what's effectively the final turn. It'll be bumpy under braking and you've gotta just barely clip the grass at the apex to get the most out of it. Be confident on the power because this is the longest acceleration zone on the track. Now that we're back on the oval, we're heading through NASCAR 3 backwards. Minimize your steering input, try to get a draft from the car ahead, and you've now hopefully finished a lap around Pocono. See how quickly the laps are going to tick by around here with just under a minute lap times for most drivers. But this season hopefully won't go by too quick so we can enjoy it. And a big thank you goes out to Sim Stickers because this season of the Weekend Warriors is brought to you by them. Whether it's button boxes, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find out more at simstickers.co.uk. Also, attention all iRacers, we found a way to get you all on the same boat. Take a cruise with us to celebrate the new year. That's right, sail out of Miami with us on January 5th, 2020 for a 7-night Eastern Caribbean cruise on the Royal Caribbean Oasis of the Seas. Special group pricing has been put in place for iRacing members and their friends. Sail away and get together with members of the iRacing community and get ready to see Phillipsburg, St. Martin, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Labadee. For as little as $125 a day, you can cruise the high seas for 7 days. And for a small deposit, you can secure your spot today. Payment plans are available for everyone. Contact Brenna today at the cruise shop to get in on this special offer. Email or call, but do it now. Spots are filling quickly. Brenna at thecruiseshopfw.com. Go on over to their Facebook events page with all the details about this amazing offer. Facebook/cruise shop FW. We'll see you on the ship. Taking a look at qualifying taking place out on track. We've got a little bit of time to cover what happened last season and give you the final stats of everything. I mentioned that Daniel Sadro was our Spec 1 points winner, and Jerry McAreevy actually jumped up a position. You can see the driver that loses out, unfortunately, is Sven Demo, who won the vast majority, but he missed too many races to take the crown. Even still, you can see that he only lost by about 100 points, so about one victory and some would have done it for him. You see the Spec 2 next to Donald Fitter. We'll talk about him a little bit more, but he's 4th overall in the points, and then Elson stays put in 5th. Let's talk about those Spec 2. Nick, how did those wind up?
Well, as you mentioned, Donald Fitterer, not only the Spec 2 driver champion from last season, but yeah, he was so good he finished 4th overall in what would have been the Spec 1 points. So he put up a dominant season last year. Ryan Sorrell, Jim McGill going to be right behind him on the podium, 90 and 96 points back. So that was definitely a tight competition. But Jim had some catching up to do. He had to pass the likes of Bob Kern and Adam Bradshaw, the drivers from the US and the UK respectively. They had a battle of their own down for 4th and 5th. So definitely a lot of good mid-pack battles there, with Fitterer pretty much dominating last season in Spec 2, but definitely looking forward to catching up on those guys again this year.
Absolutely. Now, in case you're wondering how this race is going to go, let's go over the race details really quickly. As mentioned, this is the opening round, and there's the drop weeks that you see. Sven Demmel, of course, went over those drop weeks, unfortunately, with how many rounds he missed. So even though you can step away a little bit, it's good to keep showing up and try to get the good results in. Now, the fuel is limited in these cars. In the real world, which this is a sort of track that these cars could potentially race in the real world, they wouldn't take a pit stop. The pit lane that they have here probably wasn't really meant for actual pit stops. But in here, because they've limited the fuel, you can expect the cars to come in for at least one stop over this 40-minute race. They do have open setups, thankfully, so they can try and tweak the cars to their liking. But should be a fascinating one, as this is the first ever time we broadcast a race on this North course. And thankfully, you get to see it here on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure that you subscribe. All you got to do is go to IESN's YouTube page, click the big red button that says subscribe, and then you'll get the Weekend Warriors all season long in your YouTube feed. Taking a look, we have a couple names returning here, Nick, that have been big hitters. Kane Halliburton is up on the provisional pole. David Gaspers is back. He was only running a partial schedule last season. And then I see Richard Yolland in the first 2 rows as well. So I think Sadro's going to have his work cut out for him.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Sadro currently sitting 4th right now, about 0.8 of a second off that pole lap right now. Tentatively held by Kane Halliburton in the 12 car. Like you said, these laps south of 1 minute, 56.6 seconds for Kane Halliburton on the top. So they are definitely going to be ticking away laps here quickly in a 40-minute showdown.
Now, you talked about how this track was only 1.5 miles long, and with those lap times going by so fast. I mean, what are you expecting lap traffic-wise? We've got a pretty decent field. I'm seeing it 31 drivers currently, so 30 actually it looks like, as one of them has left. So this is probably, I imagine this track is going to fill up.
Oh, it's going to get packed, I think, especially that infield section. They are going to get so tight through there. I mean, there are a couple braking zones. They are pretty fast, though. A lot faster than you'd expect. Those switchbacks through there make for some awfully tight racing. And, I mean, the track is barely wide enough to get 2 cars lined up side by side, too, through there. So it's you're going to have to be patient if you're up front battling through lap traffic, or if you have to start towards the back of the pack, but you have a faster spec racer 4 than some of the guys in front of you. You got to be patient back there as well. And we do have that pit stop as well to throw in these guys to add to the headache. So I think a lot of strategy and patience is going to get played out today because of that.
Watching Murakami and now Godden, both of them coming through. Paul Godden, actually the one involved with Sim Stickers, has helped make this deal possible this season. So a big tip of the hat to Paul, who sits in 18th in the qualifying. Gets overtaken by Yolland here on the front stretch, as Paul stays in 18th, does not improve his lap time in that 2:13. Speaking of which, one of the things we should mention if you're wondering about that Spec 2 and Spec 1 championship, it's essentially a pro and amateur. The way to tell the cars apart, there you see another of the Spec 2 drivers, 294. If they're a 200 or above, they are a Spec 2 driver. Anything below that, that is a Spec 1 driver. So easy to watch on the car and suss out which one they're competing for. Doherty currently in P8, though he is not our Spec 2 pole sitter. That goes to Nico Schuk at the moment. He is in 6th overall, the number 287, with the fastest time of a 57.2.
Wouldn't be surprised if we saw a couple late qualifying laps here go up on the board. I would imagine that traffic getting in the way would really affect you here in qualifying.
Just want to take a moment to appreciate the paint scheme of Nico's car. He's got a dabbing unicorn on one side, and I guess he's got a cat on the front. I didn't notice that before, so good to him having a little bit of sense of humor with this. The DH driver, who I actually got to race with earlier this week. I've been having fun out here at this track in this car. It's a good combination, and competed with him in my first race of the week so far. Let's see if this lap is any faster for our pole sitter in the Spec 2. Looks like it is not. Not going to have a line down on the track for that finishing line. It is marked by 2 cones, one on the inside and one to the outside. You also see a flag man out there. So if you're wondering on where that finish line is, that's how you can tell. Still 4 minutes left in this qualifying. So we ride on board with our provisional pole sitter, Kane Halliburton. He's coming through the reverse of turn 3, back onto the main stretch once again. And he's got 2/10 over David Gaspers, who's not too far behind. So let's see if he can stretch this one out as he crosses it. No, he does not. Gaspers, in the meantime, has a little bit of a toe, but not enough of a toe. It was a slow lap, in fact, for the number 23.
So, Joe, we just saw those drivers go through the last turn of the track here, that reversal of the NASCAR, and I should say IndyCar as well, oval turn 3. Are you picking up a lot of toe through there, a lot of slipstream from the cars in front of you, or is the bend and the aerodynamics just a little too much for the cars there to find any extra speed?
You know, when I was driving this week, it was enough to pull you up to the car, but it definitely wasn't a slingshot situation, it seemed. It was more about your exit off of the final turn. From my experience, which is really tricky in its own right. We're riding on board. This will show it well with Wayne Palmer. If he'd stay on board, there's so many bumps to this left side. It shocked me how many bumps there were in such a critical corner. Getting the throttle down is actually pretty tough. And you can see they don't get too fast with it not being that long of a straight. They're just going to be a little north of 100 miles an hour. So Palmer sitting in 27th. His last lap was his fastest. This one not nearly as good. He's got a 58.5 on the board. The lap times are actually very, very close throughout the field. All 30 cars are within 2.3 seconds currently. Steve Elson, who is one of our drivers fighting for that championship, comes around that last turn. Interesting that I'm seeing a few drivers staying up high. I'm wondering if some of them have figured out some things I didn't when I was racing, where maybe the high line has a little bit more banking or something's going on, or he's just able to carry more speed. You're sort of an oval guy. Is there anything that I haven't quite figured out about oval racing, Nick,
Well,
that could help there?
Pocono is not quite your typical oval, and this is especially not the typical road course, or oval, I should say. But I would guess they're just kind of setting up for that turn one, especially here in qualifying, just trying to carry as much speed as possible down into there. Not sure if we'll see that during the race, unless it gets too traffic jammed on the inside, but we'll have to wait and see what kind of strategy, what kind of racing line plays out there.
Let's see, and you're right, Ellison ducks low this time. So perhaps you are correct that he was looking to just carry the momentum with a longer run. He's got a 57.2 in 5th place. He's going to cross the line with enough time for 1 or 2 more laps, but he doesn't go any faster, 57.6, so he's about 4/10 slow.
That approach on the outside there reminds me of qualifying a stock car at Daytona or Talladega. The first lap you want on your out lap, you want to run up all the way high to gain as much speed as possible. And the second lap, you duck down all the way low like we saw Steven Nelson do on there.
Some cars demonstrating how not to take a lap as we see gaspers go off, and then there was another car to the inside, that yellow and red machine, spinning out on the exit of 1. That was Dustin Decker, it looks like. I think it was another one I had the opportunity to get to race with this week. Richard Yolland also out there looking to improve on his 3rd place. He's got almost 3/10 up to Kane Halliburton. Halliburton has found something special around here that nobody's been able to touch. The clock is ticking down, and is Kane close enough that he's going to be able to cross the line? I don't think he's quite there. It looks like he's going to get the checkered flag. And his last lap, once again, not an improvement. Nico Schuk is going to cross. He's currently in 6th. As he comes down, looks like he also does not find a faster time. Got a newcomer, Aaron Vogel. Apologies if I'm getting that name wrong. He's currently sitting in 28th, and his most recent lap is a 59 flat, but that's just about a half second shy of his quickest. See Steve Elson coming around. He's one of our drivers who could maybe get himself onto the front row. He sits in 5th still. No one able to dispose of him. But no, once again, seems like drivers struggling to improve on these final laps. And Paul Barbuza, is he our last one to be able to cross? Nope, he's already finished. So our grid is now set. Let's give you our starting order for round 1 of the Weekend Warriors. Kane Halliburton is going to be on the pole with David Gasper starting P2. Then row 2 has Richard Yolland to the inside. Our current champion, Daniel Sadro, starting in 4th. Steven Elson will be P5, and then Nico Schuk starting in row 3 and 6. Alex Cofford starts 7th, and Stevie Ray in 8th. Edward Doherty starts in 9th, rounding out the top 10. It's Ian Haycox.
Right behind them, row number 6 is going to go to Dustin Decker in the 289 and Chris Murakami in the 01. Dominic Bureau, Jim McGill, and Francois Van Dorneveld going to be rounding out your top 15. Bob Kern will follow in the 206, and another S2 driver, Jeff Jacobson, will be right actually to his left rear in 17th. On that row, in row number 9, Olav Vatchel in the 298. Ross Nicholson and Paul Godden going to round out your top 20.
Gabe Nail will start 21st with Wayne Palmer 22nd. Then it's Paul Barbuza in 23rd and John P. O'Donnell in 24th. Quarter century mark goes to Gary Wolbolt. Ian Wilson will be on the outside of him in 26th. Todd Hansen 27th. And Aaron Vagli, apparently is how it's pronounced. Thank you, Aaron, for a little bit of help behind the scenes. In 28th, Giulio Forcolan, and 29th, William Marshall 30th, and Miroslav Juracek, I believe, is going to be a did not start, as I do not see him in the session. As always, we got a rolling start. We got that right this time. I believe one of the races last season we had a standing start here in the series, but looks like we'll get it going correctly. So you talked about that first corner. I think you said it was called the Devil's Elbow, which is a very appropriate one for that one. I mean, do you think we'll see many passes able to be made into there? From my experience, it felt a little scary, but then I will admit I'm a timid driver, Nick, when it comes to try and overtake. So I probably am not as gutsy as some.
Yeah, these cars, I mean, they feel very unsettling when you go through a turn like that one where even though it's just 6 degrees of banking there in the NASCAR Turn 3, it's a very harsh elevation change for these drivers, especially if you're keeping that flat out. A lot of the drivers I watched in qualifying just let off the throttle for a second. Yeah, I think that might be where we see a lot of passes, though, is if you have guys taking different lines or different strategies into there.
Already the Porsche pace car taking off. Working their way through this first hairpin. Very long corner with a very late apex. That was the other thing that I found very interesting, is it seemed like almost every single corner was a late apex around here in this car.
Yeah, they are pretty deceptive here in the infield, and a lot of the drivers, probably all of the drivers, have little to no experience on this track prior to this week, so everyone's still learning all of the bumps and the little quirks and the curbs here, I would believe.
See if anybody's had a chance to maybe run a few races like I have, to get some secrets in there, to find some tricks around the way. Just a couple more corners to go, then they're going to be released by that Porsche pace car. David Gasper's returning to see if he can take some wins, as well as, of course, Kane Halliburton coming back to see if he can grab some as well through that, what is effectively the final corner. And then you're flat out all the way to the line from here. Drivers getting a little bit stacked up as they wait behind Halliburton, who has control. And already we're getting a little bit of contact back there as one car getting some damage. I didn't quite see who it is. We'll go to it later. But waiting patiently, Kane Halliburton making sure everybody gets stacked up. Still waiting. Now he accelerates away. Green flag is out here in Pocono as Halliburton immediately comes down and slots in front of David Gaspers, who is in second. Richard Yallen getting into line in third. Daniel Sadro, current champion, in fourth. A little bit of side-by-side behind them. This is going to have to get sorted out. Everybody accordions together into the first corner.
Very tight down into the first corner. Yeah, a lot of contact on that pace lap there. Everyone's stacking up. I believe that was Van Dorneveld. But I don't see any damage on that number 242 car, so everyone still looks to be pretty clean.
And also tell you that Gary Wohlbolt got spun off of the first braking zone. He has returned to the track without hitting anything. So although we've got a little bit of chaos, otherwise it's been looking pretty good here as they come around to complete the first lap already. And David Gaspers staying tucked right underneath the rear of Kane Halliburton, not letting him get away.
Yeah, Gasper's got a great start. He's going to go to the outside here, it looks like. Not sure if he's going to be able to slingshot around him. If that was enough toe to get up, definitely enough toe to get up alongside of him, but I think the preferred line's still definitely going to go to Halliburton in turn one.
But he's brave on the brakes. Oh, too brave. Blocks him up slightly. Gaspers holds it the long way around. The track is going to switch back into the first left-hander. And he's already ahead. A little bit of duck to the inside from Kane Halliburton, spying an opportunity. But unfortunately, Gaspers shuts the door.
This battling has allowed Richard Yallen to close in on him once again. Sadro right behind with Elson, a whole line of cars.
Yeah, this string, I mean, it goes all the way back to 22nd position. Make that 21st because John O'Donnell is spinning now. So these drivers, despite this not being really a draft track, are not able to get away from one another. On board with Gaspers yet again. Excuse me, we're on board with Kane.
See him going to the outside, trying to give Gaspers a taste of his own medicine. He's going to do exactly that. Slick shots around him on the outside. Oh, behind him.
Howland loses it in the middle of the track. He's in the racing line. Everybody scatters to avoid him. Nobody's hit him yet, but he is stuck in place.
Looks like he's going to get going again. Paul Godin has also spun coming down into that turn, but that's unrelated.
Look at how many drivers took to off course just to keep from hitting him. Race is compromised. Yallen falls all the way to 25th with how long he has to sit patiently and hope that everybody sees him. Thankfully, it's a very open corner. Nice job by Alex Coffer to just duck to the inside, and that moves him into fourth with that clever move.
And now you have a big gap between Halliburton leading Gaspers all the way back to third place. Daniel Sadro.
Seems to be par for the course for Daniel Sadro, just racking up good finishes. And maybe not the fastest driver, but fast enough. There you see him and the gap that he's lost to the top two. Oh, and we had a problem with Ian Haycox. This is down into the first corner. And once again, another driver finding the braking into that quick right-hander a little bit too tricky.
Oh, yeah, he had some rear end damage as well, so might have gotten him a little extra squirrely. He was running 8th at the time, though. Big loss of positions for him.
Yeah, he's down to 19th after that spin. Looked like mid-corner just got away from him. Oh, and we've had a car into the wall. Van Dornveld onto the oval. Also, once again, kind of stuck in no man's land. Let's watch the replay, see how he got there.
Ooh, this one's a little unique. Just looks like he got a little squirrely loose up on the banking.
Whew, who was that sneaking by?
Jim McGill was right behind him in the 342. Don't think he made any contact, did he?
It didn't look like it, but boy, was it close from the onboard of Van Dornveld.
Yeah, I think he's clean.
Nicely done. Hugo Schuch also happy to take a little bit of evasive action to stay out of that. He stayed on the back of Jim McGill, fighting to get into the top 10 as we look back at our top two. Halliburton and Gaspers leading the way by about almost 3 seconds, I should say, over Daniel Sadro. And we're a mere 5 minutes into this race.
This gives you a good picture of how lap traffic, I think, is definitely going to become a factor later on, especially if these leaders are still staying right up, tucked up underneath each other.
And we've still got 29 cars still running. Van Dornveld's the only one who's left. Todd Hansen will be the first they come up to. Meanwhile, back in fourth, Alex Coffer in a nice little fight with Sadro, seeing if he could get ahead of him. Edward Doherty also in that 3-car train that you see in the green and white machine. On to the oval once more. And then swing it around as the speed starts to pick up. 80, 90, almost 100 miles an hour. And you get to see them get onto the binders down through this fast kink into the first hairpin. And very confident braking from Alex Coffer. He gained a fair bit on Sadro and left Doherty behind.
Yeah, Coffer taking advantage of some attrition early on in this race after starting back in 7th. He's definitely moved up the field nicely so far. Doesn't look like he wants to stop there. The driver out of the Carolinas region. Not only chasing down Sadro, but also doing a good job holding off Edward Doherty behind him, like you just said.
Doherty just trying to hang on here, see if he could take something away from these two. Should see the pit window open relatively soon, I would think. Got a couple more minutes, and then might see a few drivers duck on in with an early stop. Calling it now that expect Stevie Ray to be the first of those. Meanwhile, up at the top, side-by-side battle for the lead as they lap their first car to the outside. That is Halliburton. Inside is Gaspers coming into the left-hander. Gaspers with a slight edge and a big slide from Kane Halliburton that he saves but loses a spot in the process.
Another slide for Halliburton as he gets back on the gas. He's going to pull up alongside of him, but only for a moment as the track switches back left. Gaspers will hold on to it now. Look at the bumps they have to go over there.
Surprised to see them fighting this much because they're about 3.5 seconds ahead of Sadro. They could lose that time back to the 51 if they keep driving side by side like that.
More side by side here as Halliburton's going to shoot to the outside.
Looks like Gasper's covered off the inside initially, comes back to the racing line. And as they whoa up down into the first corner, Halliburton not able to get side by side like we saw last time around. Ooh, takes a little look down into the left-hander.
He poked his nose in there. He's definitely testing the waters. Looks like he might take a little peek again here at the exit of this turn.
Ooh, and Richard Yolland had a big problem. He went for an absolute wild ride into turn 1. He was trying to overtake Gabe Nail. Got a little grass. Woo! And away she goes. Fortunately, it looks like he got a little damage from the fence out of that, so he decided today was enough, and he exited out.
Looks like iRacing's timing and scoring was showing 110 miles an hour through the grass there for Yolland.
Woo. I would not feel safe in the grass in one of these cars at
Definitely
110.
not.
Oh, side by side for our leaders once again in the left-hander. Halliburton just a hair ahead of Gaspers. Oh, they almost come together wheel to wheel, nearly banging side to side. Halliburton's not going to give it up. Up onto the oval once again. They are racing incredibly bravely for this early in the race. You can see the 23 nearly getting into the side of Halliburton. He's going to try to stay next to him a long way around of the banking on the oval. Think the side draft means anything in these cars?
It might on a bigger track. I can't imagine that it would mean that much on this short of a straightaway, but they are definitely they're trying to get that into effect, that's for sure.
Was squeezing him down as far as he could go. Look at that, side by side for almost a whole lap at this point. And Halliburton's got the inside into the left-hander. Can he finally get it done? Gaspers is going to hang on to it tooth and nail. But he's got the inside once again. This is exactly how they were a lap ago. And this time he's fully passed. Does he chop him off? Yes, he does.
Great job by Gaspers. Halliburton wanted to race aggressively with him there, and Gaspers went for the aggressive maneuver to get clear of him. He's going to maintain the lead for now.
It's another toe coming onto the front stretch. And once again, Gaspers staying low as the number 12 drifts up high. He's got a little bit of the car to the side of Gaspers. Going to challenge him into the braking. They've got a lot of practice at this point about doing this maneuver. Incredibly, in all of this, they're still 3 seconds ahead of Sadro. To the inside once more. That's Halliburton in the white and black machine. And the number 12, the 23, belonging to David Gaspers. This time he gives it up and settles behind a little puff of smoke as he locks the wheels into turn 5.
Let's see if Gaspers goes on the outside here like Halliburton did to him. First 2 or 3 laps of this race down into turn 1, they were overtaking each other on the outside every single time. Now they're kind of just pulling up side by side, getting a lot more familiar with each other's racing lines.
And you're going to watch us one more time. We'd like to duck away to some of the other battles as now they get back in line. P6 has been great. Elson leads Murakami and Decker. Decker had a good run on Chris, but decided to back out of it. But the 01 of Murakami has been having a great climb. He qualified 12th. He is up to 7th place. And as we said, spying 6th now.
Yeah, we just saw a little bit of a lockup from him as he went down into turn 1. That allowed Dustin Decker to close in behind him. Now we see Murakami take a peek down low on the inside of Steven Elson, though. Might be able to pull up alongside of him here. Not quite yet.
Elson drifting through turn 5, managing to hold it together. Oh, we've had a problem with Olav Vatshel. He's down in 21st, make that 22nd now as more cars go by. Another first corner incident. That car he's leading is Paul Barbuza. Scandinavian looks pretty solid on the brakes at first, but then suddenly a little too hot. And around she goes.
Just comes out from underneath you like that.
Leaders seem to be having a lot of fun because they're side by side again. And it's going to be Gaspers who comes out on top between them. But I guess don't listen to me, because despite all this fighting, they are continuing to pull away from Sadro. It is now 3.6 seconds. So they can do as much as they want as long as they don't hit each other.
It's got to be frustrating for Daniel Sadro to sit back and see that up in the distance, them racing side by side, then keep checking timing and scoring and see them pull away from him.
Around the outside, down into the first braking zone. Halliburton has certainly got this one figured out, and it's gotten him the lead a number of times. Braking for the left-hander now. And Gaspers sometimes gives it up. This time he did not. He stays to the inside now. Halliburton has to switch back and fall in line. Also, just want to say I was right. Stevie Ray was your first pitter. It's not like winning the lottery, though. But something happened to Dustin Decker. He's fallen down the order.
Oh, yeah, he had a bit of a spin. Looks like Chris Murakami was getting around him.
And Dustin just lost the car off of turn 5. That loses him about 2 or 3 spots. He comes back in 9th place. Still above where he started, interestingly enough, so not too bad of a day for Dustin. We've seen the clouds come in and out here as we go to 4th place, a battle between Doherty and Elson. Doherty's actually must have recently got by Steve Elson, because he was at the back of this train not too long ago.
Looks like he's putting a little gap on him as well. Actually, Elson going to head to the pits.
All right, so the number 56 feels like it is time to duck away. He felt he was losing time battling. The nice thing is that this pit lane seems pretty easy to get in and out of.
Yeah, it doesn't look like too much of a headache. It doesn't look like you have to have to go through any chicanes to slow you down or anything.
On screen, this is, oh, well, it was becoming normal, but now they actually made contact as Halliburton gets a shove to the side from David Gaspers. I think maybe the gloves are starting to come off here.
Still not quite to the halfway mark of this race. These drivers might want to think twice about how aggressive they want to be with each other. Halliburton slots back in line. You can see him really start to pull in the 23 ahead of him.
Also some visible damage there on the left side of Gaspers.
Yeah, I noticed that. I don't see any on the right side of Halliburton.
And not an aero-sensitive track as they once again go wheel to wheel into the first corner. They're going to touch again this time. It was in this left-hander. What has been numbered turn 4, although I'm still confused as to where 3 exactly is. And he's trying to chop him off. Ooh, that is looking far more aggressive than what we saw at the start.
I'll be interested to see if these two come in the pits at the same time, or if they give each other a lap or two in between them.
Yeah, I'm surprised one of them hasn't pitted to get away from one another. Maybe there's just no gap in the traffic, because they will have to overtake a few slower cars, and that could slow them down and be costly. Drifting out to the racing line, Kane Halliburton making sure to cover off David Gaspers. For once in this race, they're not going to enter this first corner side by side. Boy, I talked about the lap traffic or non-pitters, rather, I should say, being a traffic problem if they pit. But look at this in front of them. There's a lot of cars. That's McGill, Bureau, Palmer, Wobo, Marshall, Ray, that's Shell. A lot of drivers. Either of them duck off. They could be catching them this lap. No, both of them stay out. There is a little damage there on the left side, it looks like, of Halliburton's car. You can see from on board. Oh, excuse me, that's Gasper's again. You guys need a little bit more unique paint schemes. Halliburton sets the fastest lap, but he gets held up big time.
Yeah, that's Bob Kern. Really helps David Gaspers, but that was almost the end of the race for Kate Halliburton.
I definitely had a few offs doing that, trying to lap cars during my races this week. It is so scary coming up the lap traffic in that corner because everybody's got different... Yeah, look at how quickly he comes up on it.
And the brake lights went on there late. I don't think Halliburton expected that. And as we come back live, it looks like they're going to have more lap traffic ahead of him. Jim McGill, Dominique Bureau. Looks like Wayne Palmer going to make it a little bit easier for them. He's going to go to the pits.
The others stay out. Last time they caught them rather unexpectedly, and they're going to go side by side in a battle for position. McGill and Bureau fighting for 20th place as our leaders also fight side by side behind them. Looks like Halliburton is going to come out on top. Cover off the inside into the left-hander. Now he gets up behind Bureau. Bureau pulls off to the side, sees the blue flags. Very polite driving from the 208. Speaking of 200 numbered cars, a quick nod to Edward Doherty, who is our leader in the Spec 2 race. He's got a little bit of a gap back to second. That's Alex Cofford. Just about, looks like 4 seconds ahead of him. So not challenged, but it's certainly not race over. Weaving their way through the traffic now. Neither willing to duck off quite yet to take the scheduled stop. That's William Marshall ahead of them, holding up Halliburton.
William Marshall, one of the two Pennsylvania drivers here at their home track today.
And who was the other one on that, actually?
Looks like Gabe Nail, but I believe he's retired from the race.
No, he's
right.
12th.
Yeah, up in 12th. Had an earlier incident, but it looks like he's good now.
Not a bad showing. Hopefully he can manage to bring himself a top 10 on home ground as we continue to watch the leaders stay out for yet another lap. Our highest pitter is still Steve Elson, who pitted from, I want to say it was 5th place when he came in. He's currently running in 14th. Finally, a little bit of a gap for our top two before they get to the next car up. Apologies to the rest of the field for not really showing much of the action. Most have spread out, but we're looking now at the battle for P4. Doherty and Murakami both yet to pit.
Looks like both of these cars have seen a bit of contact today. Murakami looking to the inside. Going to be a little too deep there.
Yeah, Chris has looked a little antsy since we put the cameras on him, and wide for Doherty. Through turn 5, Murakami locked it up into the first corner and then found himself trying to poke his nose in all over. Somehow Edward holds on to that P4. Let's see if Chris has another look now that they come up the front stretch towards the Devil's Elbow.
Looks like Murakami's going to go to the outside, but going to have the little bit of a block by Doherty. Lap traffic ahead of him. That's Jeff Jacobson.
Yeah, I was just going to say, catching Jacobson in an awkward spot. He tries to stay to the outside. He's still going to hold them up, but holds them up equally. So Really no advantage gained by either driver. Ooh, another little look. Chris certainly looks like he might be the faster of these two, but just struggling to do anything with that speed, as he's going to take the strategic route and pit now.
Looked like he was a little conservative getting into the pits compared to some other drivers we've seen today. I hope that doesn't hurt him. Doherty might be a little faster getting into his pits.
So where is our highest pitter, Steve Elson, because Murakami wasn't too far away from him. On screen, the leader's still going at it. This time, Kane Halliburton ahead. Eventually chops off Gaspers, gets back to the racing line. William Marshall, the driver in front of them. He's going to duck down all the way to the curb, the inside of the oval corner. Make them go the long way around to lap him.
Jasper's picking up a little slipstream there off of Marshall.
Doesn't make the pass. And I can report that Murakami returns in 13th place just behind Nico Schuk. So he's the third driver in line to have finished his pit stop. Man, this battle just does not quit between these two. And frankly, even though they've been running away with things, they're 7 seconds ahead of Sadro. I'm glad to see both of them back because they are certainly proving to be competition for each other.
Absolutely. They look like they're having a blast out there as well and doing a great job giving each other room too, and haven't just stuffed it into turn one with each other yet.
You see Sadro back in third. He's left Doherty behind. He's not under threat. Dean Halliburton set the fastest lap of the race in the meantime. Edward Doherty pits. Now, Doherty was racing with Elson. That I do remember. So this could be important in the fight for what will effectively be about 4th or 5th place. Looking for his stall, finds it. There's Elson already returning to the oval. Looking at about roughly 10 to 15 second pit stops. Doherty's still stationary. There is Elson. Elson's by. Elson's well clear. And in fact, Doherty just ahead of Nico Schuk, who has a problem. Nico, who is going to be fighting for position with Edward Doherty, loses the car in the first corner. There's getting to be a lot of dust kicked up out there on that turn. He saw him there. He thought maybe he could do something. Turned in too late. Oh, and there's just no saving it from there.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of accidents in turn one today, but I think this might be the first one where you see it because he went too wide. We've seen a lot of guys just lose it there on the inside, but Schuk just misses the corner completely, really. Turns in way too late. And there's that little access road out there that hopped him up in the air.
Because of that mistake, he lost 10th to Dustin Decker and 11th to Jim McGill. He continues on in P12 as the sun starts to shine once more. It's been consistently around 88, 87 degrees on the track surface, so they haven't really dealt with too wildly of fluctuating temperatures. There are leaders now getting up behind Doherty and Barbuza. This is misleading. Remember, Doherty has pitted, but our leaders have not. David Gasper is giving one.
Oh.
Who is that? That was Barbuza.
Paul Barbuza. Scary moment there.
Top 2 riding in the slipstream of one of our drivers who has pitted, who tends to be about as fast to them. But he's given the blue flag, so he's going to be polite, and he's going to let at least one through, maybe two. Oh, losing control, squirming under the brakes, and somehow David Gaspers comes out the other end in control of the car.
But Doherty is going to come right up and alongside of him as well, give him a little challenge into the next turn. Gasper's still able to squeak away from him. But Doherty looks like he wants back by.
Could make a furniture set with how many logs he was sawing there trying to catch the car. In the meantime, Gaspers stays within about a second, but not anymore because Gaspers is in.
I think he needs to catch his breath a little bit after that lap. I wonder if that's going to trigger Kane Halliburton this next lap to come in, or if he's going to stay out a little bit longer, if he can.
Yeah, we're getting to the end of that pit window by now. Sadros comes in. Crawford stays out. Ian Haycox is going to stay out, it looks like. Other than those drivers, Dominic Bureau is the only other driver yet to pit. Gaspers is back out and running. And no surprise, he's well ahead of Steve Elson, who was our highest pitter. Sadro is going to get out ahead of Elson, but I think Elson's got the momentum to maybe get up behind him here.
And I can also report Kane Halliburton stayed out another lap.
Well, short laps means a lot more leeway on your fuel strategy. Not too shocked to see drivers be able to stretch it. Whoa, and there's a car spinning in front of him. That's O'Donnell, who just comes across his bow as he slides through. I wonder if Halliburton even knew that car was going to be zipping by like that, because he took the normal racing line like he wasn't expecting it. Wow.
All kinds of flying projectiles being thrown at our leaders today.
And that just goes to show how quickly this race could change. A few more feet, and that would have been different. Same thing with David Gaspers, who just got into a lapped car.
That's Barbuza once again getting in the way. Not intentionally, of course, but Gaspers finds him again on the track.
Watch the replay here. Again, just caught him off guard, braking early. And I don't blame David too much on that one. You're so committed in that corner. When you've reached a slow car, it's hard to avoid them or change direction. In the meantime, Halliburton has pit. Gaspers is coming around right now. There you see Halliburton still stationary. Gaspers with a 9.6 in his stall. Halliburton with a 9.0. Gaspers has to speed up. Halliburton chugging along, trying to get it up himself. And I'm not sure that he's got enough speed, because that is Gaspers right there going by. No, that is Jeff Jacobson. No, yeah, Gaspers is well behind.
This is looking really good for Halliburton. I wondered if he'd be able to get up to speed quickly enough, but that first turn was so close to his pit exit. He's going to have a decently sized lead over Gaspers, the biggest lead we've seen all day.
Exactly what I was thinking. This is the best gap that Halliburton has had this whole time. Is this enough to be able to hold Gaspers away and out of the slipstream? It's about 1.5 seconds between them. This will be telling. Gaspers is behind Jacobson, who again is a lap down. He's not in this fight. He could give a little bit of a tow to Gaspers to allow him to regain some ground, depending on what Jacobson does into this first corner. Going to let him through nicely. Gaspers uses that to cut it down to about a second.
So with about 7.5 minutes left, this is definitely going to be go time for Gaspers. Like you said, will he be close enough to get that slipstream? Or the other factor, and this is the lap traffic ahead of Halliburton, is that going to become overwhelming for him? Is that going to allow Gaspers to close in on him?
Some quick screen time for the number 219, Alex Cofford in 5th, who again is our leader in the Spec 2 race today. Last season, it was very much a one-horse race in that Spec 2. It was pretty well dominated by your champion, Alex Cofford. This time only has about 5 seconds over Doherty behind. He's still got to keep it together. We've seen how easy it is to spin and run into trouble. There's our leader, the number 12 of Kane Halliburton, lapping Ross Nicholson. Short laps also means a lot of cars do not finish on the lead lap. We have all the way to 10th place lapped at this point. Yuko Shuk, the next one on the chopping block.
That was Ross Nicholson that Halliburton was getting by, and now he's got Chris Murakami, the next one, who is back in, looks like outside the top 20. Looks like back in 25th.
Looks like he'll get a nice little tow on the front stretch. That lap traffic certainly helped Halliburton because it's up to 1.7 seconds. Remember, a lap ago, it was all the way down to about a second. Murakami does a nice job letting the leader through.
Yeah, Halliburton has had it pretty easy so far when it comes to lap traffic. His next 3 cars, though, might be a bit more of a challenge. William Marshall, Bob Kern, and Todd Hansen all fighting for 22nd right now, just ahead of him.
He does have a ways to go to catch them.
Yeah.
But from the pace difference we've seen of a few cars, I'm not sure even these 5 minutes is short enough to keep him from catching Hansen. And that, again, as Nick mentioned, that is a battle for 22nd position. Oh, and Aaron Vigli, unfortunately, finds himself off track. Let's see what caused this.
Oh, this is rejoining the oval, it looks like.
I did that a number of times in practice. Whoa! Gaspers just had a moment. I know we're on replay still. He had to go off track to get around the rejoining car of Bob Kern. AC Kern off to the left, and then suddenly he is on the racing line. Great avoidance.
Gasper's trying to hustle. That's the last thing he needs.
Yeah, and
trying to get back around Murakami right now.
He's hustling, but he's losing out. He is 2 seconds behind Halliburton, though he has not lost out to Sadro, who's 12 seconds behind. This is going the way of the number 12. Kern was a part of that battle for 22nd. Since he has fallen back with an off track, it is now down to Marshall and Hansen to settle that out. And I do believe they will be caught because in the background you can catch flashes of Kane Halliburton. There's a car off track. Paul Godden, unfortunately, seems to have found trouble in the final corner. Enough that he's going to have to take into the pit, so I hope he didn't damage it. We do get a spare car if they come upon any sort of damage, and I'm pretty certain we've seen a few drivers take that already. Look at the difference in lap times between Halliburton and Gaspers. David continually losing out as Kane works his way farther out of reach. But will this traffic maybe offer an opportunity for the DH driver to regain ground? Todd Hansen up ahead of Halliburton and within reach. Hansen looking back at our leader. Quickly does he gain, and does Hansen get out of the way? He's staying off to the left side. He's going to lift early, and Halliburton is through one of them.
Halliburton knows that he's opening up the gap every single lap now with over David Gaspers. He just wants to keep it clean these last 2 minutes now.
And the next one, Marshall lets him through, but they're not done. Again, Gaspers now has to try and navigate, see if he can gain time. Have to admit, didn't look like Halliburton was held up too badly, and on top of it, Marshall and Hansen almost started fighting there, with Marshall getting a bad run out of 5.
Gaspers is going to be desperate as well to get past these guys. He's really hoping something happens to Kane Halliburton, loses the handling or dips a tire into the grass or something here late in the going.
2 laps to go, this time by the line, and they're going side by side yet again. Hansen around the outside as second place. David Gaspers watches on, wishing this would go away. He's going to get one as William Marshall takes one for the team and lets him through.
And he flew past Marshall there. He's going to try to get around Hansen now. Probably going to have to wait until that very same turn on the next lap. I don't think he wants to, though. Yeah.
Balked big time by Todd Hansen down through turn 4, and he slides again, still holding up David Gaspers. Gaspers is losing a ton of time here. This could be the nail in the coffin because the white flag is getting ready to come out. Look at how frustrated David is getting. The 23 is absolutely stuck.
I think Gaspers is going to make sure he moves if Hansen doesn't get out of his way.
There he goes now.
Yep.
Hansen obviously didn't want to give up time because he didn't want to allow Marshall to have a chance to try and get through for that position, but boy, that probably left a pretty steamed David Gaspers. Clock ticks down to 0 as Kane Halliburton in that lap is now up to 3 seconds away. All he has to do is cruise home to victory. Boy, what a fight these two put on. The pit stops may have separated them, but the number 12 has earned this win. Out of the final corner and back onto the oval, it is smooth sailing from here on for the number 12. He dives it down to the low side. He knows it's all his. Kane Halliburton comes back with a win here in the Weekend Warriors for round 1 at Pocono. Gaspers follows him home to second place, a distant 3 seconds behind. And then all the way back, almost 15 seconds back for a current champion for another podium racked up, Daniel Sadro in the 51.
Doesn't look like any of the lead lap cars are in any battles. They've separated themselves pretty nicely after their pit stop.
You can see Alex Coffer going to win the Spec 2 race here today, finishing 5th overall. No mean feat. Doherty follows him home second in that Spec 2, and Dustin Decker third for the podium in the Spec 2 race. So actually, out of our top 10, I believe half of them were Spec 2 drivers. That is going to finish things out as the last of them come across the line. We'll take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel, but we will come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews on screen. You'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Pocono. We just watched round one here and the Weekend Warriors, but no, it's not on the oval. It was on the North Road course that they hold. If you've never heard of that, well, you're not alone. We certainly were new to this course, but we enjoyed it a lot, and so did Kane Halliburton, who proved to be the best at it today, winning by nearly 3 seconds over David Gaspers, who finished in second. But that gap doesn't tell the tale because they certainly swapped it back and forth for the vast majority of the race. That was well ahead of Daniel Sadro, who rounds out the podium, who just had nothing for them, even though they were side by side many laps at a time. Steve Elson gets a 4th place, with Alex Cofford winning the Spec 2 race and finishing 5th overall. Edward Doherty takes P6, and then Dustin Decker in 7th. Ian Haycox gets 8th place, and then Jim McGill, a nice climb for him from 14th to 9th. Nico Schuch unfortunately ran into a little bit of trouble and settles for a top 10, last car on the lead lap.
Everyone from 11th back on to 20th will comprise your drivers that finished the race one lap down. Ross Nicholson and Jeff Jacobson, as well as Gabe Nail, going to be 3 Spec 2 racers in 11th, 12th, and 13th. Aaron Vegley going to be in the 19 car. The Spec 1 racer finishing 14th. Dominique Bureau, Gary Wolbott, Wayne Palmer, Ian Wilson, and Olav Vatchel rounding out, or actually John P. O'Donnell as well, rounding out the top 20 there.
21st goes to Todd Hansen, and then 22nd, William Marshall. Chris Murakami finishes 23rd with Bob Kern in 24th, and then you get to drivers who DNF: Paul Godin, P25, Paul Barbuzza, 26, Steve Ray. Sad to see him not finish well. Still didn't actually quite see what happened to him. He was 27th. Julio Forcolin in 28th, and Richard Yolland 29th. Francois Van Doornveld hit the wall very early, coming back onto the oval, and it was the last car to finish in 30th. We've got some drivers to talk to, including our second place driver, David Gaspers, ready to talk to us. David, we were surprised how hard you and Kane were fighting early on in the race. Were you guys just having fun out there, or what was the reason for tussling so hard in the opening laps?
Yeah, we were definitely having a lot of fun there. We had a race earlier this week, which went pretty much the same way there. And as long as we didn't really lose too much time to the hours, so why shouldn't we just have a bit for fun there?
This was certainly an interesting track, and we've got a number of those coming this season, a little bit shorter. And I believe you said in the past you prefer something that's a little bit more of a club course instead of the draft tracks that we wind up at a lot of times. What are your feelings about this one here at Pocono? Is this a roval that has endeared you, or you kind of leave this one?
It's okay. In general, I don't really have anything against big tracks, just I don't like the tracks where the start-finish line is so far after the corner that the behind car just can drive by you. Other than that, I don't really care about them too much.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was your reasoning on that. Second place today. Next week, we're going back to Monza, although it's the junior course. Have you had any practice running this car there?
I have never seen the layout.
All right. Well, we'll see how you fare once we arrive there. Again, congratulations on a podium today.
Thank you.
That was David Gaspers, who finished in second. And then third place driver, Dan Sadro, going to talk to Nick.
Yeah, I've caught up with reigning champ Dan Sadro. Sadro had a pretty quiet race today, but Dan, you still got a podium out of it.
Yeah, had a little unfortunate that I didn't get to have a good race with Richard, and unfortunately, and I don't know if I had anything to do with it. I thought I gave him enough room on lap 2, and then I thought it was fine, and then he just spun out in turn 2. So I hope I didn't have anything to do with it. But once he was out, I was just driving around.
Yeah, we watched you. They were side by side for the lead for the entire first green flag stint there. Kane and David were, and we saw you behind them 3 or 4 seconds back, and we were wondering, were you being patient, waiting for them to make a mistake, or just not have the pace to close in on them?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I didn't have the pace, and then especially later in the race, I just kind of let off a little bit, and just to make sure that I didn't do something and crash myself out. I didn't have the pace, but there was not much I could do there.
Yeah, well, we've definitely seen you go on to have fantastic seasons without finding victory lane, although I'm sure you'd love to do that this season. It's definitely a unique schedule as well. We go to Monza Junior, it looks like, next week. Are you excited for another short little unique track?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be interesting. Obviously, handling lap traffic is going to be a big part of the skill required there because of how short the track's going to be, and hopefully I can do all right at that.
All right, that's going to be a fun race for sure. Hopefully we see you have another great run there. We will see you there then.
All right, have a good one, guys.
That was third place finisher Daniel Sadro. And then we have our winner in the Spec 2 class, Alex Cofford in his HJ Motorsports machine. Alex, congratulations on that victory. It must feel a little bit better not having Donald Fitter around for once.
Well, this is my first time in, so I guess Donald's good in the second class, is my guess.
He romped away with the victory very easily last season. So.
Oh, wow. I guess I got pretty lucky in that sense.
Yeah. But even still, you were fifth overall. So your pace seems to be pretty good despite being in Spec 2. Do you have aims for the championships considering you're new here, or with this being your first season, you just kind of got to take it as it comes?
I'll definitely take it as it comes. I kind of just picked up the Spec Racer a couple weeks or even months ago for random courses. So it's been a learning process for sure. I've done a lot of official races this week and ended up in the wall in quite a couple of them on my own accord. So I think I got really lucky today. I think it was a lot of fun, and I don't anticipate doing that good all the time, but I'll try my best and we'll see what happens.
So I'm curious then, since you say that you're not as familiar with the Spec Racer, what's your normal car, your most regular car that you race on iRacing?
After a couple beverages, I happen to kind of roll the dice and go with whatever. It's very much just whatever suits my mood that day, that week. I like the Mustang. I like the 911 Cup, but I could probably give you a list of 20 cars that I enjoy running.
I can feel you on that. There's I'm kind of the same as just being particular of what I feel like at the time. Well, congratulations again on the Spec 2 win as well as a top 5 overall.
Thank you very much.
And finally, we have 13th place finisher Gabe Nail ready to talk to Nick about his race.
I have caught up with Gabe. You mentioned he finished 13th, but the thing that I'm a little more interested in, being from Pennsylvania myself, he's the top Pennsylvania finisher here today. Gabe, is this a home track for you, or are you one of those Westerners over there?
I'm actually in central Pennsylvania, so I'm to the south of it, so I'm not out in the west, but down from it. I'm actually really happy about getting 13th at least. I mean, it was, I believe, 9th in the class, and my qualifying was, to say the least, it was really bad. And just because I had a lot of nerves going into this, because this was the first time I've ever done Weekend Warriors, and I only got into doing spec races about a month ago, and I even got just back into iRacing about a month ago. I've still been learning the ropes with the spec racer, and I've been practicing on this track a lot, especially for this because I really wanted to do this. But I think the track conditions may have been a little bit different, and I may have just been a little bit nervous, just braking too early, and I only found a lot of pace really in the later stages of the race. But I qualified in P21, so I think being in P13 at the finish is really, it's a small victory for me at least. And of course being top 10 in the class, considering there's a lot of drivers in the class as well.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you back here on iRacing, and you definitely looked like you belonged out there on the track. Like you said, you started back in 21st, and passing today was definitely at a premium. Very hard to pass out there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Did you find yourself passing anywhere else besides down into turn one, or like did you have much room on the infield to work with, or was that pretty much the only place you could find the easiest way to get around someone?
I think actually a lot of my positions came from my pit stop. I think a lot came from there, and because of people, when they pit, they kind of got stuck in traffic. And I had pretty much a clear track the entire race. Like, I was the only time I actually didn't really pass anybody unless they were off the track. I was actually letting people pass me. I was letting some of the faster class drivers pass me because I knew the pace was a little bit better, but I was trying my best to keep a clear track the entire race, and I did a lot of that. So I think my pit stop was, I think it gave me a lot of positions, because I know before I pitted I was in P9, I believe, somewhere around that area. So I only lost 4 spots from the pit.
Yeah, well, it was a fantastic race nonetheless. Like you said, a small victory for you, but hopefully we see you in the rest of this season this year.
Yeah, and the other small victory for me was not bottling it, because I tend to do that because I just get so nervous with this car, and if you mess up just one little bit, it's so sensitive that it'll snap on you. So I was really glad that I didn't end up messing it up.
All right, well, we're glad to have you back on iRacing. Thanks for stopping by, and
Yep,
hopefully
thank you.
we will catch you in the booth again.
Yep.
That was Gabe Nail, 13th place, and something of a local, at least, a home track for Gabe. We're going to close up, though, with a big thank you to our sponsor for this season, Sim Stickers. Again, if you want to find out where to get their products, go to simstickers.co.uk if you're interested. And of course, a big thank you to iRacing for putting us on IES, and make sure and hit their YouTube page and subscribe. All you got to do is click the big red button that says so. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team, Nick, Amjad, and Dougie, before Amjad gets carried away by a twister here. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, we're going to Italy for the next race, to Monza, but it's not the full GP course. It's the junior track. Very, very short. It'll be June 23rd, next Sunday at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.